Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and if you haven't been following my channel, I'm 82 years old, coming to a crossroad here. 82 years old, and been telling my life story here on YouTube. And right now I'm up to 1987, believe it or not. So if you really wanted to get caught up, at the end of this video, there's a link that says life story, and you can go, when you have absolutely nothing else to do, you can go watch those videos. Anyway, I can tell you that my life story hasn't been smooth and easy. There's been some exciting parts to it. So, let's get started. In the last video, I told two stories. I told a story about going to Moose Creek, Idaho, and almost crashing my airplane because I was a brand new pilot, been licensed for about 2 weeks, and did something that normally you wouldn't do unless you were smart. Anyway, and so then I told about my brother coming over at the end of the, after I had been flying for a year, and I had 300 hours of flying, and because he had his license but had to rent airplanes, after being licensed for several years, I think he just, I don't remember, 20 hours or 30 hours, something like that, instead of my 300. Okay, so anyway, so we're going to fix that in this video, I hope, if we don't run out of time. That's my biggest problem. After having my tricycle landing gear Cessna 150 for a year, and having gone to Moose Creek and found out that a tail dragger airplane is much more designed for taking off and landing on grass fields and going to places like Moose Creek than a tricycle gear airplane. So I decided that I would like to have a tail dragger. So I started keeping my eye open for one, and good morning. I kept keeping my eye open for one, and I found one listed in Flying Magazine or something like that. Anyway, it was in California at Nut Tree Airport. It was a Cessna 170, which is a tail dragger. It was 1950 vintage, so it was old, but they were just fine. And it was for sale for $7,000. Now remember, I paid $5,000 for my Cessna 150. So I called him up and I asked him, I said, what's the bottom dollar that you will take for your 170? And he said, oh, $6,000. So I thought, okay, I'll send you a couple $100, hold it for me, and I'll be down to get it. So he did. And so then I got in touch with my brother because I needed to, we're going to fly down there in the 150 and then buy the 170 and then fly back both planes. So I needed my brother, and I knew he'd probably like to do that. And as it turned out, he did want to do that. So this was in July or late June of 1987. So I took off and flew from Pasco, Washington, where I lived, over to, I think it was probably Renton Airport or Boeing Airport. I can't remember which one. If I still had my logbooks, I could tell you, but I gave all my logbooks to my oldest son when he bought my airplane. So anyway, so picked him up, and of course I let him fly back because my objective was to let him get some hours flying airplanes, because I think he loved flying more than I did, to be honest with you. So we came back, and then got back to Pasco, and he went shopping with me, and he showed me earplugs. Because my Cessna 150 was very, very noisy in the cockpit. And of course he knew that because he'd just flown it. So I bought some earplugs, and that's what I used for a long time, rather than destroying my hearing, which I had already started to destroy. So then got up the next morning, went out to the airport, loaded up the 150 with his belongings and my belongings and all the stuff we would need. And back then, if you're going to fly into the mountains or over mountains or anything, usually you took a leather jacket, because if you get stuck in the woods somewhere, that's going to keep you warm when it's cold at night. So anyway, and those are heavy, you know. So I'm actually getting lost in this neighborhood, but that's okay. I don't mind. So then let me see. So we took off, and by the way, I found some VHF or VHS videos, and if I can, I was watching one, and it's got some of the clips of flying down to get that airplane. And so let's see, let's just turn around and go back this way, because that's the way we've already gone. And so so I've got some clips. I want to try to just get parts of them, because one of them's almost 2 hours long of all the things we did. So anyway, we took off, and he did all the flying, and I did all the filming, and we landed at Klamath Falls in order to refuel, and then we took off. And I can't remember, I wish I could, but it's just too long ago. We had to get up to 10,000 feet to go over a mountain area. And with all of us in there on a hot summer day, we had a hard time getting up to 10,000 feet. In fact, I can remember as we skimmed over the top of that mountain, we were not more than 200 or 300 feet above the treetops. So it was pretty close, because we just had that plane loaded up so heavy. So anyway, hope I'm not forgetting something here, because that was a fun trip. We got a lot of videos of the ground below and all that stuff. So let's see. Okay, so we landed at Nut Tree Airport, and contacted the guy, and also contacted my Uncle Wendell, who lived in that area, and told him we were there and we needed a place to stay, and so he was willing to let us stay at his house while we got all the transactions made. And by the way, back then I just stuck $6,000 in my wallet. My brother thought I was crazy, but that's what I did. And so, because I've been buying things. If you remember following my videos, I was buying motorcycles and rebuilding them and stuff like that. So, here's a little park. Let's see if we can get through this little park. So, I just put that cash in my pocket, and contacted the guy, and he came out to the airport. Now, the reason he was selling it for the price he was selling it was because he was in the service, and he was leaving the country, and so never been in this park before. And so he needed to sell his plane, and he was also a flight instructor, so then he could teach me how to fly a tail dragger. Now, you got to understand that a tail dragger, if you go into a grocery store, Walmart or whatever, and take one of their carts and turn it around so that the steering wheels are in the back, like on an airplane, and then push it forward and see what it does. Maybe you've done this. What it does is immediately wants to turn around, put the steering wheels in front. Yeah, like my tricycle landing gear. See, so the tail dragger, when you land that airplane with that steering wheel in the back, it wants to turn around, it wants to, the back end wants to get ahead of the front end, same as the grocery cart. So what you have to do, I got to push another pedal assist here. What you have to do is be on top of the whole thing, and by the way, you steer an airplane with the pedals, just in case you're not aware of that. I got a story I could tell you, but I won't waste your time. Well, maybe I'll just tell you the story. When I was a little kid, my dad worked part-time at the Bellevue Airport, which is not there anymore. It's probably where Microsoft is located, there in Kirkland. Anyway, so he worked on radios on Saturdays, made a little extra money. And so I got to go with him a few times. And so this one time, I got to go with him several times, I'll put it that way. So this one time, this guy was going to take, what he did is he for $10 you could get a ride in an airplane. And so this guy, this couple came, young man and woman, they came to rent a ride. And so, and then that left room in the front seat. And he came over to my dad and he said, do you think your son wants to go for an airplane ride? And he said, yeah, go ahead. And by the way, this pilot that took me up in the airplane was, a couple years later, was killed in a crash. But anyway, so I'm sitting in the front and we're going along and we're flying over the woods and stuff. And he said, you want to fly? And I said, yeah. And so, because I had no idea how an airplane turned. Well, if you turn the wheel, the steering wheel, we'll call it, if you turn that, I got to go around the corner here. That makes the plane bank left or right. It doesn't turn the plane. So we'll go over here. Anyway, so knowing nothing about airplanes, he said, you want to drive? And so I was going along straight, and then all of a sudden I decided I'm going to turn. So I turned that wheel. Well, that banks the plane like this, and I can remember this to this day. I can remember looking down out my window, straight down at the trees. And of course, he took over. He didn't let me drive anymore. He didn't let me steer anymor. So, so anyway, that's how you turn airplanes. So in order to keep that tail dragger going straight, you very carefully have to pedal left and right with your feet. And at first, it's almost impossible. So anyway, the guy that was selling me the plane, he said, okay, let's go up. And so we did a couple stalls and stuff like that. And then he said, okay, now, because he had me flying it, and he said, okay, let's land. And so, because I had no idea how hard it was to land a tail dragger, we came in, and of course, when the wheels touched down, and when that rear wheel touched down, all of a sudden that plane started going every which way. And of course, he took over because he knew what was going to happen. And I mean, there was no way I could keep that tail dragger going straight. And I remember taxiing back to the runway so we could take off again and try it again. I was thinking, I just paid $6,000 for a plane I'll never be able to fly. And so we did several landings, and each landing was easier, and I got to where I could just keep it going straight by just feathering my toes on those pedals. And so So I was able to land the plane, which means I was able to fly it home. Okay, so anyway, paid him, said goodbye, took the plane, and let's see, about to run out of time. So anyway, my uncle lived real close to an airport called Lincoln Airport, and so he said, "Can we move this plane over to Lincoln Airport?" And because then he could come out. And by the way, my dad was down visiting visiting my uncle at that time, my dad and mom, and so then we could all get together. So I got into 170, my brother got into 150, and we planned our flight on the chart, sectional chart they call them, and flew over to Lincoln Field. Well, so we land at Lincoln Field, and they came out to meet us. And while we're landing there at Lincoln Field, my brother looks over, and he sees an airplane that he likes that's for sale. And so we got my plane all fixed up and ready to fly. We flew home. He flying my Cessna 150, and I flying the 170. And when we got home, he made a phone call and made an appointment to go back down to Lincoln Airport and buy himself an airplane. So that'll be the next flight that we take, going down to get my brother's airplane. And that was a fun trip. So I'm looking forward to telling that story, and I'm hoping that you're enjoying my videos because I'm running out of time. So I want to say thank you, and God bless.